Okay, so Nick Caserio has been with the Texans for 3 drafts now, and this is going to be his 4th draft. So he came in January of 2021, and he has been here for the draft of 21, 22, 23, and now in April of 24 will be his 4th draft. And what we're starting to find is that he, just like any other GM, has tendencies. The thing about his tendencies, they tend to work. All right. And he tends to be aggressive, and he doesn't mess around when he feels good about a player. When he's confident, he goes for it. And that is what makes him so special. So, in other words, now we're going to talk about this. We are going to talk about what his strategies are. And Battle Red Blog did such a phenomenal job of putting these together. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a few of these strategies, and then we're going to go in and kind of preview what the draft could look like for him this year. It's mock draft season, right? But before we get into mock draft, I love talking about draft strategy, and then I love talking about free agency, and then we really hit mock draft heavy, but I want to prepare you guys for it. So let's go ahead and take a look right now at some of the things. The first thing he does is he doubles up on positions of need. I find this to be so interesting. He addresses holes in the roster by selecting a player and then later drafting an extremely similar player. So in 2023, he did this. All right. He did this in 2023 by selecting Will Anderson and then later Dylan Horton. All right. And then that was on the defensive end side. And then when you look at the interior offensive lineman, they put it as offensive guard / offensive center. I would have just put IOL, interior offensive lineman, Juice Scruggs and Jarrett Patterson. And then he did the same thing with Tank Dell and Xavier Hutchinson at wide receiver. Then you look on in 2022, he did the same thing. O-line, he went Green and Decolis, and then he went DB, Stingley, and Petre. By the way, Stingley and Petre, that's kind of proven to work out, don't you think? And this got me thinking, like, let's look at the overall, like, before we get into these other ones. Actually, no, I'm just kidding. Let's see what some of the other things that he does. He trades up. I think the big thing for a lot of teams for the longest time was to try and follow the Bill Belichick and just accumulate assets. Well, now what we're starting to see is the GMs that are doing a phenomenal job. The Brad Holmes, Detroit Lions. If you don't know, we're Lions fans here. Okay, we started the second channel, Sports Talk Extra, for teams the national media kind of ignores. That's why we love the Texans. I think this might be video 50 or something like that we've done on the Texans. We talk about them almost every day. But these guys get aggressive. When they are like, I know that I like this player, they are very willing to trade up for them. All right? You can call it whatever you want. These are the players he has traded up to draft. Will Anderson, Juice Scruggs, Henry To'oto'o, Tank Dell, Xavier Hutchinson, Christian Harris, John Mechie, Thomas Booker, Tegan Quitterano, I can't say it. It's my mouth. I'm so sorry. Nico Collins and Garrett Wallow. All right? That is insane. That's insane. To trade up to draft 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players in a 3-year span is nuts. And usually you'd be saying to yourself, you can't do that because you are going to destroy and make yourself void, okay, of all draft picks come future time. Here's the thing. For a team that finished in the position that they finished, they actually have pretty good draft capital. This is on Tankathon. They have a 23rd overall pick. They got that from Cleveland. Okay? They traded away their first round pick, which ended up being like 26, 27, somewhere in there. Okay? And they got Cleveland's, which ended up being better. Why? Because they beat Cleveland. I just think that's hilarious. All right? Then in the playoffs, then in the second round, they have their own. Pick number 59. And then in the third round, they had traded away. That's okay. They got Phillies. In the fourth round, they traded away. That's okay. They have Cleveland's. And they still have their own fourth, so I guess they didn't trade away. That's on me. All right, so they don't have a fifth, they don't have a sixth, but what would you rather have, 2 fourths or a fourth, fifth, sixth? I can lean toward I'd rather have 2 fourths, especially when you look at Caserio's draft history. All right, when we go in here and we see the draft history that he has, all right, you see him hitting in the first few rounds. All right, you got C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson, Scruggs, To'o in the 5th round. Actually ended up being pretty good, but he traded off for him. Tank Dell in the 3rd round. Very, very good. All right, you can say what you want about Hutchinson and all these other guys, okay, but not like huge producers yet. Stingley, nailed it. Green is a starter. Petre, nailed it. Mechie, book's still out, but it's looking like it could be fine. All right, Christian Harris, got it. Dameon Pierce, say what you want about the way he ran this year. This was a good 4th-round running back selection. All right, and then you get later in here, and you're like, okay, well, we haven't seen much of him. You're right, and that's usually how it should be with rounds 5, 6, and 7. All right, even in 2021, his first draft. All right, Davis Mills, Nico Collins in the 3rd round, those are just fine 3rd-round picks. You can say what you want about Davis Mills. You're not looking for a franchise quarterback in the 3rd round. All right. And then he, by the way, got a good pick with Brevin Jordan in the 5th round. I mean, like a ton of talent coming there. So you look at this and you're like, yeah, how about this? Let's just load up. You want picks. The kind of the marker is how many picks do you have in the top 100? In other words, how many picks in rounds 1, 2, and 3 do you have? That's kind of the big first window. They have 3. But then they have 2 picks in the 4th round that still can be players that can be good depth pieces, and if you draft really well, future starters. So they have 5 picks in 4 rounds. He hasn't traded away the farm, and I think that's a big, big deal. I think the other thing that you're going to see is he's a guy who evenly distributes between offense and defensive players. He evenly distributes between offense and defensive players. Slight skew to offense. I think over his 3 years, he's drafted 13 offensive players and 10 defensive players. Exactly 1 more offensive player than defensive player each year. Well, this year he has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 picks, so I would expect it to be 4 and 4, or maybe 5 offense, 3 defense. We'll see what happens. It's funny, a lot of times when you have a defensive coach like that, you spend more talent on the offense knowing that it's going to be a little more fluid, and you trust your coach to make the defense happen. Either way, Nick Caserio has done some things that are really, really impressive. There are 2 more things that he does that I do want to highlight. He has preferences for big-time schools and programs. All right, the only player he selected outside of a Power 5 school is Tank Dell. And by the way, Tank Dell playing at Houston. Houston plays a lot of the Power 5 schools. They play a lot of Big 12 schools. They usually play Texas or Texas A&M or another big school out of that state. So it's one of those things with Houston where he's right in the backyard. So I think that's a unique outlier. But other than that, I mean, Bama, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Notre Dame, LSU, A&M, TCU, Stanford. Like, wow. You know, like these are big-time schools. And not only that, he loves selecting team captains. So here's what it tells me. It tells me there's a certain type of player that you need to be a Houston Texan. You need to be a guy that is at the top of the college game, and not only that, respected amongst your peers enough to be a captain. You need to be a guy who loves the game of football. That is a good way to draft even at the highest levels. All right, hope you learned something. If not, that's okay. Maybe you will in the next one. Like, subscribe. See you in the next one.